Delbecq. My name is Deeble, and if you're a true crime lover like me, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and also share this video with someone you may know that might like this content. Before we get into the video, of course, I want to shout out my first comment winner, me ASMR or Mia SMR. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it right. I apologize if I'm not. So shout out to you for being the first comment winner. If anyone would like to be featured in my future video, please comment down below being the first person to comment, and you could be featured in one of my future videos. We only have a few more pages left to go, like literally a bench left in this book. I'll probably be giving away in January, which is the top of the year, so that'll be a perfect way to start the year off with a giveaway. So stay tuned for that. So let's get into the video. Sit back, relax, grab a snack, and enjoy another crazy ass story. Warning, this video may contain details of graphic content. This channel is for mature audiences only. Some viewers might find this disturbing. So before we get started, if you hear any background noises, my son is wide awake downstairs and he's playing with his toys, and he's probably gonna scream and shout and stuff, so I hope that doesn't bother you too much. Robert Mark Edwards didn't stand a chance in life. Born in 1961, his father didn't believe that Robert was his child and began beating him daily when he was just 6 months old. His abuse wasn't just directed at Robert, however. He beat Robert's brother, sister, and mother as well. Not the whole family. His father's nickname for Robert and his brother William were SFB1 and SFB2. Shit for brains 1 and 2. Wow. Robert's father worked as a bartender and his mother was a nurse. Both were alcoholics, and by the time he was 11, his mother had a drug problem. She was addicted to Valium. The family lived in Florida and moved briefly to Puerto Rico. When he was 13 years old, Robert's mother finally divorced his father and moved the family to California. Shortly after their arrival in California, she was run over by a car while on a drug and alcohol binge. She lived, but her drug and alcohol habits eventually rubbed off on the kids. Just a year after their arrival in California, Robert and his brother began breaking into homes and stealing items to pay for their own drugs and alcohol. I guess the apple don't fall too far from the tree. They drank, smoked pot, and hashish, and took LSD, cocaine, and peeled methamphetamine, barbiturates, heroin, and anything else they could get their hands on. His sister Elaine wasn't immune and developed an addiction to Valium. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce these drugs or whatever. Even both of Robert's grandmothers were addicts. One to lorazepam and the other to Valium and oxycodone. Robert dropped out of school in the 8th grade and soon after started selling fake LSD to kids in Long Beach, California. He and his brother sold little tabs of paper with designs on it, claiming it was LSD, but it was nothing more than printed paper. Robert's alcohol abuse became a serious problem when he experienced his first alcoholic blackout at 16. He drank so much and took so many drugs that he found himself wandering the streets of Long Beach the next morning with no idea how he got there. On one occasion, he woke up under a kitchen table in a house he wasn't familiar with and had no recollection of anything from the previous night. In March 1986, Robert met Catherine Deeble, while he was selling fake LSD near a Long Beach bus stop. He had crashed his motorcycle a few months earlier, and his leg was in a cast. As Catherine drove by the bus stop in her pickup truck, she saw Robert, felt sorry for him, hobbling around in his casket, and offered him a ride. From that point on, they were a couple. Catherine invited him into her life and introduced him to her mother, Marjorie Deeble. 55-year-old Marjorie was a strong-willed woman. She had been a successful real estate agent living in nearby Los Alamitos, California, just inland from Long Beach. One afternoon while her mother was at work, Catherine brought Robert to her mother's apartment. Robert took note as Catherine retrieved a key, heading in a nearby drain pipe to get into the condo. The couple then went inside to have sex. Catherine and Robert had been dating for 2 months when she and her mother took a trip together in early May. Robert helped them load their suitcases into their car and borrowed Catherine's truck while they were away. The alternator in the truck, however, failed while they were gone, and Marjorie blamed Robert for the problem. She became upset with Robert and demanded that he get the truck fixed before they returned. Robert agreed and took the truck to the dealer, but later it became clear that he harbored some resentment at Marjorie's harsh words towards him. Catherine and Marjorie returned from their trip on the morning of May 12th. Catherine dropped her mother off at her apartment and headed home. That would be the last time she saw her mother alive. The morning of May 13th, Catherine noticed something strange. She normally parked her truck in the driveway with her driver's side door either before or after the bushes so she could open the door without hitting them. That morning, however, it was parked with the door directly against the bushes, causing her to stand in the bushes as she got in. Catherine knew that the only other person that had access to her truck was Robert. Although she thought it was strange that he had borrowed the truck in the middle of the night, thought little of it at the time. 3 days later, Marjorie's co-workers at Great Western Real Estate were getting worried. The sparky, petite women that had won Salesperson of the Year in 1985 hadn't been to the office in days. That was completely out of character for her, so they called Los Alamitos police. The afternoon of May 16th, police arrived at Marjorie's apartment for a welfare check, only to find her front door cracked open. They could hear loud music playing in the bedroom, so they knocked and called her name but got no answer. When they entered her bedroom, they found Marjorie Deeble dead, face down on the floor. She was naked from the waist down, and her nightgown had been torn and pushed up to her torso. Her hands were tied behind her back with a piece of her nightgown and a telephone cord. A thin belt was tightened around her neck, and the end of the belt was tied to the handle of the dresser, suspending her neck 8 inches above the floor. Her legs showed signs that they had been tied at one time as well. The bedroom was covered with blood, drawers were open, her jewelry was missing, clothes were thrown all over the floor, and the telephone had been ripped from the wall. A bloody pillowcase had been used as a hood over her head. Marjorie had lost a lot of blood from her ears, mouth, and nose. Her nose was broken and her face had the residue of an adhesive, indicating that she had been gagged. She had been beaten, raped, and strangled. On the bed was a bloody can of hairstyling mousse that had been used to sexually assault her. Robert was with Catherine when the Los Alamitos police called her into the station. He sat in the waiting room and could hear her crying in a nearby room when they told her that her mother had been brutally murdered. During Catherine's grief, Robert continued to date her. weeks, but eventually they drifted away and lost contact. The police, however, considered him a potential suspect. They asked him for a DNA sample, but he refused. I wonder why. 7 years went by with no leads in the case of Marjorie Deeble's murder, but Los Alamitos police detectives kept track of Robert's every move. Although they had no physical evidence linking him to the murder, they patiently waited, knowing he would eventually slip up. During the years following the murder, Edwards couldn't seem to stay out of trouble. He had been arrested in 1984 for vehicle burglary, again in 1987 on a weapons charge, and in 1988 for receiving property and vehicle theft. In 1992, he moved to Hawaii and was again arrested in 1994 for kidnapping, sexual assault, robbery, and burglary. In the summer of 1996, Robert Edwards was working as a roofer in the South Maui town of Kiai. He lived just a block from the beach with his girlfriend Janice Hunt and her 12-year-old daughter. From the window of their second-story apartment on Canoe Street, Janice could watch whales breaching using a pair of binoculars that she kept on a table below the window. Robert, however, was more interested in using the binoculars to watch the neighbors. Weirdo. Becky Ventura was from Alaska and spent a few months every year vacationing in South Maui with her mother, 67-year-old Muriel Delbecq, a successful real estate agent. Becky rented a condo about a half-mile from the beach, while Muriel rented a ground-floor apartment on Canoe Street, just 1 block from the beach and directly across the street from Robert Edwards. On January 25th, 1993, after an evening out, Peggy dropped her mother off at her apartment and drove home. Across the street, Robert Edwards had just learned that his dog had been hit by a car. Robert sobbed and cradled the dog in his arms, but it was too late. Just a month earlier, he had learned that his stepfather had been killed in a plane crash. He spent the past month numbing his pain with excessive alcohol and cocaine. The sudden death of his dog compounded his sorrow. That night, Robert carried his dog's body to his kayak and paddled out into the ocean for a burial at sea. When he returned to shore around 11 p.m., he went to a friend's apartment, injected a half a gram of cocaine, and drank himself into a blackout. I'm surprised he ain't died, because what the fuck? The next morning, Janice Hunt woke to a commotion on the street outside. Police cars had gathered at the Canoe Apartments across the street from their apartment. She walked outside and spoke to neighbors who informed her that a murder had occurred during the night. At 7:30 that morning, Peggy Ventura went to her mother's apartment so they could go to the beach together for their morning walk. When she knocked on her door, however, there was no answer. A pair of flip-flops that she didn't recognize sat outside the front door. Using a key that she knew her mother had hid under a rock, she entered the apartment and immediately noticed blood on the floor. In a panic, Becky tried to open the front door to her mother's bedroom, only to find it locked. She reached for the phone in the kitchen, but it had been ripped from the wall. Becky ran outside to a neighbor's apartment, screamed for them to call the police, and ran to the side of the apartment to try to get in through the window. When she crawled through the window, she couldn't see. A comforter covered the window, leaving the room pitch black. In the dark, Becky found her way to the bedroom door and opened it to let light into the room. She could see the bedroom had been ransacked and there was more blood on the floor and walls. Okay, at that point, I would have just left and let someone else find her, because, I mean, you see the room has been ransacked and there's blood in the apartment, I wouldn't be able to, handle what I think is about to happen or what's obvious that has happened. Beneath a pile of blankets in the middle of the bed was her mother, Muriel, laid face up, completely naked, bruised, bloody, and lifeless. She had been beaten viciously about the head, sexually assaulted, and strangled to death. When police arrived, there was evidence that Muriel's arms and legs had been bound at one time, but whatever the killer had used to bind her was gone. Her wedding ring was missing from her ring finger, and the other items were missing from the apartment. Her body was sprawled on the bed with her legs open, and a Mousse scan was still inserted in her private area. The medical examiner said the Mousse scan had been inserted into, I'm gonna just say her front and her back, if y'all know what I mean. It had been inserted so far that it protruded into her abdominal cavity. Her breasts were cut and bruised, and her pubic hair had been cut off or shaved off. The killer had left behind plenty of evidence. On the wall near the bed was a bloody palm print. A white t-shirt on the floor had a bloody foot impression. There were cigarette butts on the floor, and the killer had spit into the bathtub, stupid, leaving his DNA. A bent window screen told investigators that the killer had most likely come in through the window and unsuccessfully tried to replace it. On the windowsill and the floor near the window were pieces of dried grass that the killer had left behind. In a dumpster near the crime scene, police found a bloody pillowcase that matched the pattern of Muriel's bedding. Inside the pillowcase was her checkbook, traveler's checks, 2 telephones, and 2 pieces of telephone cord tied together. It was obvious that the cords were used to bind her wrists and ankles. They also found a bra with the tips of the cut out of a pair of panties that were cut open, and several random household items from her apartment. When Janice Hunt was interviewed by police, she reported that when she told Robert Edward of the murder across the street, he seemed genuinely surprised. She also claimed, however, that while they were dating, Robert liked to tie her up and had twice tried to sodomize her with a bottle. Detectives also learned that using the binoculars near the window in their apartment, Robert had a clear view to the front door of Muriel's apartment. It wasn't hard to tie Edwards to the crime. The bloody palm print was a match for his palm, and the glob of spit in the bathtub contained his DNA. When Maui police pulled his California police record, it was 9 pages long, and he had been wanted in California for the past 18 months for a parole violation. When Los Alamitos detectives heard of Edward's arrest, they knew they could now link him to the murder of Marjorie Deeble as well. Now remember, y'all, after Marjorie Deeble was murdered and passed away, Robert Edwards continued dating Marjorie Deeble's daughter, Catherine. Remember, Robert and Catherine went to the detectives or to the police station or whatever, and Catherine learned about, her mother being brutally murdered. Robert was with her. Robert got away with it for about 6 or 7 years, and proceeded to date her daughter after he killed her mother. And I'm sure he saw her suffer and cry and grieve. That is so sick. At trial, Robert blamed his frequent alcoholic blackout "It's hard for me to understand that I could do something so horrible," end quote. Blackouts were, of course, no excuse for such a heinous murder. After only 2 hours of deliberation, a jury found him guilty. Maui County Court sentenced him to 5 life terms plus 20 years. Edwards was then transferred to California, where, if convicted, he faced a possible death sentence for the murder of Marjorie Deeble. The two murders had astonishing similarities. Both women were near the same age, who lived alone in a ground floor apartment. Both had their limbs bound with telephone cords, were strangled, and were violated with a Mousse can. They even coincidentally shared the same 3 initials, M-E-D. Whoa. In California, Robert didn't deny that he murdered Marjorie Deeble. The second jury was unsympathetic, and on September 9th, 1999, Edwards was sentenced to death. Due to a moratorium, Edward has spent more than 20 years on death row, and as of this time of writing, resides at San Quentin Prison north of San Francisco. He writes poetry and short stories. The following is a short story by Robert Edwards. Okay, y'all, so the rest of this and on this page is a short story that Robert Edwards wrote, and I'm not even going to waste my time reading it because I really don't care. So I'm done reading this story. Thank you all for watching. Merry Christmas to you all. Happy holidays to you and your family, if that is what you celebrate. And I'll catch you all in my next video. Love you guys. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share the video to someone you may know that'll like this